Hello, my name is Clemons Jr. This is part 2 of the 3-part video testimony for how my disgraceful attorney, Mr. Scott P. Batey, committed misconduct in his handling of my case with my former employer, Pomeroy I.T. Solutions Sales Company Incorporated. Please like, share, comment on this video, spread it to as many platforms as possible. Please send it to any lawyers or journalists or news professionals or influencers that you know may be able to help me prevent this man, Mr. Scott P. Batey, from ever hurting anyone else like he hurt me with this case for the rest of his life. Thank you very much. God bless you and your loved ones in your travels. And now on to part 2. Okay, so after the citizens thing happened, the subpoena went through. And it was very auspicious because when the subpoena went through, Citizens Bank not only mailed me a copy of the subpoena, they mailed my grandparents a copy of the subpoena. And then I realized at the time, oh, this Citizens account is a joint account. I thought that once I turned 18 years old, the account would just be completely mine and I wouldn't have to worry about what was going on. Because the account would just be completely mine. My granddad's name wasn't on it. So apparently, because my granddad's name was on it, at any point in time, if my granddad had wanted to, he could have opened up a card and taken money out of my account. And that's what Citizens allowed to happen. And so it's like, okay. When my grandparents got the subpoena, they contacted my lawyer immediately. And my lawyer had some conversation with them. Then my lawyer called me back and said, well, hey, your grandparents said you haven't seen them in some years. And I said, well, it's complicated, Scott. And then, Scott said, well, they're not going to be around for that much longer. Maybe you should, go see them. And I said, it's complicated, Scott. And so what ended up happening was I went to my grandparents' house. I got the subpoena from them. And when I got the subpoena from them, we had a very, very deep conversation. I was yelling, screaming, and shouting at them about the fact that they were telling private family business to some random white man who they don't know from Adam. And that's private family business. That wasn't something that really needs to be talked about, because if I really wanted to drag them through the mud, I would drag them through the mud. And on top of that, I let them know explicitly all of the different things that I had known about what was going on in the family and all the different things that happened. And I let them know quite plainly, you know something? We will be talking in the future soon. You'll hear from me. But, hey, I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to disturb you. I'm just going to let you know that with everything that I know that happened in that house and the things that happened to me in that house, you all are just lucky that you have a clean record. You're lucky that you have a clean record. And I looked you up already in the court documents. Now, after we had the conversation between, me and my grandparents about them talking to some random white man about family business that's not that man's concern at all, the next thing that happened was the subpoena went through, and then after the subpoena went through, I didn't hear anything about it. Now, when I say the subpoena went through, what that means is after all that happened, my lawyer was supposedly taking care of it behind the scenes. Very little follow-up, very little contact with him for several months. And it wasn't until April 2022 that I had decided to follow up with Mr. Scott P. Batey after, talking to my doctor about things that were going on in my life, about, how I had lost my job illegally, which, hey, it wasn't all bad because even though I was having trouble finding a job after losing a job after a year, either, you don't tell them why you lost the job and they assume you lost it for cause, or you tell them why you lost the job and you end up being labeled a lawsuit threat or lawsuit happy or any other sort of insult to claim that you're not a good person, which all that happened to me. And I knew it was going to be difficult for me to find a job, which is why I didn't want to lose that job in the first place. My doctor said to me, well, this judgment was in November, and it's now April. And so when she said that to me, what happened was I decided that I was going to go and follow up with my lawyer in person to just get an update on the collections. And so I went to visit his office. The receptionist, or the paralegal, not receptionist, took down my information, said Scott would follow up with me. So while I was on my way home, Scott followed up with me and said to me that the employer's payroll account had been closed. And I said, okay, well, that means that Pomeroy is doing something funny, right? He starts going into a line of questioning about, did I actually work for this person? Who was my employer? What did I do? What were my duties? And his line of questioning was insinuating that he suspected that I committed perjury and I defrauded the court in an attempt to win $1 million. And I just couldn't even believe that he would ask me questions like that after we had already won the judgment. My firm belief is that if he felt that there was anything phony about my story, which is not phony at all, I went through it. I am still traumatized by it. He would have asked me all those questions at the very beginning before deciding to make any sort of filings in court, make any sort of judgments, do all the process serving and paperwork and all of that. So he asked me that in April. And that's when I picked up that there was something funny really, really going on, because he was falsely accusing me of perjury and defrauding the court with a fake story. And that is the worst betrayal I have ever had in my life. I put my faith in this person. I trusted that they believed me, that my story that I know was true because I went through it. I have the emails, the documentation, the paperwork, the screenshots. I have it all to prove that this actually happened. And he falsely accused me of perjury and misuse of court resources and defrauding the court. And, that was a very difficult thing to deal with at the time. And so when I intuited that, I rushed home and I sent an email to his paralegals and gave them the employment verification information they were looking for, because they were accusing me of a crime and it was a false accusation. And after sending them all of my employment verifications, my offer letter, my unemployment insurance agency decision, which had my previous employer clearly listed on there, and some other documentation which I will share publicly. I just can't recall everything I sent at the time, but I do know I definitely sent that man my offer letter, and I definitely sent him my unemployment insurance agency decision. He said to me, okay, well, I believe you. And I said, okay, you believe me, but I'm still traumatized by it. And not only that, I don't trust you anymore. And I just didn't tell him that I didn't trust him anymore, because, I just wanted him to see if I give him this information, will he decide to continue to do his particular job. So that is how we got to a point where the relationship was basically completely broken down at that point. I had attempted to get a private investigator to start to do a examination of the company's records to sort of figure out, how can we go about this collections process from our former employer. They wanted to talk to my lawyer. I called my lawyer, let him know, hey, you said we need to work closer together, because that's what he said right after I sent him the employment documentations. He followed up with me by phone and said, I believe you, and we need to work closer together. So I thought that's what he meant. And his response to everything I was giving him was dismissive. It was as if he didn't care that I was attempting to find extra ways to figure out what was going on with my former employer, not being willing to pay on the judgment. And so after that, I followed up with the SBA on my EIDL loan. I have a business, the IT General LLC, for which I am the president and founder. That business has been open since August 2016, certified by the Secretary of State for the state of Michigan. All the paperwork is in order, and I was able to apply for an EIDL loan because I had earned income in self-employment from Just Answer and Field Nation in 2019, and for maybe a month or so in 2020, while I was transitioning from doing a full-time self-employment to full-time direct employment, while keeping my business open on the side, administering the paperwork, keeping abreast of business news in the market, and of course bootstrapping this business using the employment I had with Pomeroy to ensure that I would be able to get my business off the ground and start fixing computers directly for people in Metro Detroit. And so I talked to the SBA about this because I was requesting a third increase on the EIDL loan that I have. And on the third increase, they wanted a reason. So I had put the fact that I won a lawsuit against my former employer as a promise to pay. And so I discussed this with the SBA directly, informed them that, yes, I not only have this business, that I do work on the side, I also am actively in the job market looking for direct employment opportunities. And so I attempt to do both as best as I'm able to. Most of the time, I will focus on a direct employment because it's more demanding and it is making more money than what I was earning in self-employment. I believe in 2019, I don't recall the exact amount that I reported to the SBA and to the IRS. I believe it's somewhere in the realm of about $5,000, might be $7,000, $8,000. The actual tax paperwork, if you all requested, I will of course send you my tax returns because I don't have anything to hide here. Okay, all of the paperwork that I have meticulously documented to make sure that nobody would ever accuse me of defrauding anybody for any type of money. I have all that paperwork, have everything there. SBA certified it. Everything from the SBA standpoint was good. I told them about the fact that my lawyer had falsely accused me of perjury and defrauding the court, and that I was concerned about why he accused me of that when I gave him all of the paperwork proof, and that, this was why I hadn't hired anyone, because as much as I want to hire someone to help me, I'm concerned about them sabotaging me like my lawyer did. And so what ended up happening was the SBA representative I talked to, they spoke with their supervisor. The supervisor told them to tell me to send an email to the Birmingham SBA office, because all they have is a email box. They don't take phone calls. And I sent the information over to the Birmingham SBA office, describing to them my grave financial situation, which it was grave, essentially. I had been looking for a job at that point for about a year and a half with no bites. And people telling me they think I'm defrauding the Employment Insurance Agency. People telling me they don't think I'm a team player because I haven't held a specific title for 5 years. And then all of the ghosting from all the different jobs that I had applied for. And I specifically, with my Unemployment Insurance Agency submissions I was required to do, I put in 3 employers that I really wanted to hear from each and every single week, because I was under the belief that the UIA would randomly contact these people to see if I'd actually put in an application, if I had actually put forth the effort, if I had actually followed up with the phone calls and the emails they had requested to send me, which of course I did. And after I sent that email to the Birmingham SBA, it was about maybe a few weeks later, and my attorney completely changed his tune. He asked me for Kroger locations that I had worked for. And I gave him the Kroger locations that were the most racist to me while I was providing service to them as Pomeroy's client. And so as that was all going on, he got the information from me. He got my W-2s to confirm my employer's identification number. And they were doing these collection actions. And because I no longer trusted him, I was using Odyssey Public Access in the Third Circuit Court to get an unofficial record of what was going on with the collections. No, I did not call him directly. No, I did not necessarily email him directly looking for progress updates, because I understood that the relationship had already broken down once he falsely accused me of perjury and defrauding the court. So, as these collections or actions are going on, I'm still looking for employment, I thought I had found me a IT sales job doing sales for Verizon products. And unfortunately, the Verizon sales job fell through, and it fell through in the worst way possible. It wasn't even anything that I could recall that I did wrong. The employer asked me to wear business professional, so I did. And because I was wearing business professional and the other people weren't really wearing business professional, it was sort of like a mix of business professional and casual. I recall that one of the men who worked there, we were doing, a mock sales run, and he said to me straight to my face, "Fuck you." And that degraded until that employer said to me that they had a COVID outbreak. That's why they, had requested me to just, stay at home for now. And looking back on that, because I believe what they were saying, which is why, I went to go get COVID testing kits and see if I had COVID, because I thought I had came into COVID at that time. I never got follow-up from that particular employer to come back to, keep doing the job. So I felt that they had unofficially decided to sort of push me out in a way, because I did show that man my judgment paperwork from my former employer because he kept harassing me, and I believed it was racist. And so I keep looking for a job. I recall at this time I had put my lawsuit information on my resume as an explanation for why I left the previous job. Of course, that fell through. It just really went nowhere. And it wasn't until I talked to someone with Detroit at work who mentioned to me that because I had this lawsuit information on my resume, there would be no way that they would really want to recommend to hire me because I had the lawsuit information on my resume, which actually stunned me, because it's like, okay, so not even the state of Michigan would hire me if they knew about my lawsuit? That's crazy to me. And the man who talked to me about a potential position with LinkedIn as a content moderator, he had the nerve to use the word felon and accuse me of being a criminal because I won a lawsuit against my former employer because they legitimately harmed me. And it was stunning. And at that particular point, I said, you know what, forget it. Let's just go ahead, take the lawsuit information off the record. Let's just say, hey, I'm self-employed, willing to work another job alongside my self-employment. And at that particular point, once I took off that information off my resume and just hit it and let people discover it on their own or not, I received a callback from a contracting company that was working with HCL America. And so since that's what they were doing, I said, okay, well, I'll take the job. I think they told me at first they can only offer me 47. So then when I went into the interview, they were going to offer me 50. So then I said, well, you know, I made 50 at my last job. So then they offered me 55. And I said, okay. And then I told the recruiter, oh, you lied to me because you said you couldn't offer me any more money. And they offered me an extra $8,000 just because I told them what I made in my last job. So that job was with HCL America. And that job fell through after 6 months due to a severe racial discrimination, intimidation, threat, and harassment event that is still being investigated by the EEOC as we speak. And during this particular time that all of this is going on, where I'm looking for another job, and I finally find a job after almost 2 fucking years, my lawyer decides to hire a collection agency without telling me. So I don't know what's going on, because I know that I only paid him a contingency fee, and I'm just too broke to recruit a collections agency on my own if that's what he wanted me to do. So what I ended up doing was following up directly with the collections people to understand what happened. And they said, well, he signed a contingency fee agreement with us, so he would be paying us on contingency. And you don't have to worry about anything, because what we get from him is going to come from him directly. It's not going to necessarily come from you. So then I said, okay, that's fine. And then as I kept following up with the collection agency, kept following up with them just to see what was going on, they were just really incompetent. You know, they really just didn't have any clue really what they were doing. They thought that I was the employer and not the client. They did shady things like calling me from a private number, and you know, I'm the client of the person who hired you. It was just some really funny business surrounding the collection on my lawsuit. So it was around in November 2022 that I recall that the collections agency said to me that they were going to stop collections on the lawsuit. And then I asked them a very direct question. I said, wait a minute. You're not saying it's uncollectible. You're just saying that you don't want to do the collections anymore. And then that's when he answered affirmatively, yes. So the collections agency that my lawyer hired decided to abandon collections while also keeping their name on the record. And then when I followed up directly with my lawyers, paralegals about this, I gave them all of the employment information about Pomeroy that I found from the Kentucky Secretary of State, which had their business records, their officers, when they recertified their business name in Kentucky, all of those different things. And that's when they told me in November 2022 by email that they are not a collections lawyer. And so the saga basically was, I'm still waiting for them all throughout 2023. I started doing other contracting opportunities on the side, and that's how I've been able to so far survive while still putting in applications, still looking for another job. I got my Google project manager certification, attempted to go apply for basic project manager jobs, entry-level project manager jobs. Just got stonewalled, didn't really get anywhere with that. And so we in 2024